Okay, so I think it's fair to say that we're in a recession, and so this particular, we've got a theme of over 3 modules or 3 sessions where we're going to look at. One is about the sales skills and behaviors today, how we can combine those sales skills and behaviors and do through performance and people development drive performance in the next session. And finally, we're going to have a lot of objections. We're going to have to do a lot of negotiation. There's going to be a lot of expectations on the way we service our accounts, particularly as we try to balance budgets and needs. So there's a session that we're doing in the 3rd session to say, demonstrate the best practice of closing, negotiation, and dealing with objections. But let's just talk about this particular situation, because things were already happening. The world was changing pretty rapidly anyway. And the COVID effect has really just put, what was already happening, say, fairly quickly, is now happening very quickly. And that's driven by the fact that we've got disruption. We had disruption in technology, now we're having disruption politically, socially, economically, environmentally. We're having many, many things. And your customers and your customers' customers, there are roadblocks everywhere, which means that there's conflicting priorities, deals are slipping. Not only that, it's hard to actually get hold of the people we want to talk to. I'm trying to sell some land at the moment, part of my garden plot. Trying to get the different solicitors who are all working from home is incredibly difficult to get things organized, and then try to get searches done and deal with issues that rise from the exchanging of documents. So there's a lot of challenge out there. But what also is happening, and this was already happening, is that the B2B buyer, there was a power shift between the seller. One time, the seller knew the pricing, knew all was able to propose different solutions. The buyer doesn't like to be sold to anymore. He does all his research online. Particularly if he knows what he wants to do, and in fact, he'll do 75%. He won't actually contact the companies they want to do business with until they've been right through the process. They've educated themselves, they've selected solutions, they've done the research, and they only come to talk to organizations when they're ready to buy. And in fact, 93% of buyers don't even do that. They'll just go and buy it online. So you're seeing the disruption in online, and what is it? We've seen a 400% increase in the internet usage in the last 3 months. 3 months, 400%, and that's in the retail. And believe me, we had retail. You used to have shop assistants have gone online. We used to have sales reps or sales people working who've now gone into inside sales, who've now gone online. And now you're seeing a massive, massive change, to the point that there's 1 million salespeople, 23% of all salespeople will have lost their jobs in the last 3 years, and it's a big chunk going currently. So that's going to create, why is that? The game is changing. And the competition is coming from all sorts of directions. Interestingly, though, and creating opportunities. Let's just talk about some of the examples of disruption. The best probably using a couple of examples. Airbnb didn't exist a number of years ago. Already do 40 million beds a year. Okay, they're impacted by Airbnb. But interestingly, they bought a print company. And not only that, because of all their data and because of all their knowledge of all the different locations through their print, they've expanded their print and are now doing, selling. Although they're a digital platform, they're selling their brochures and their catalogs at airports and in regional and personalized to particular regions to drive activity. I think Uber, although it's been in the news an awful lot, have rewrote the rules for taxiing. They use GPS technology at point of need. They have something which I think is beautiful, that they have demand-driven pricing. So depending on peak distance, the price goes up or it goes down. Other than that, they have fantastic feedback systems, because not only do they get a feedback from you, which means that they get rated on their service, they also rate their customers in terms of how many tip them and how many look at them and how many times they use the service. So really clever in terms of what they're doing. So there's a little caption in there: companies rarely die from moving too fast, but frequently die from moving too slow. And that was Reed Hastings when he was talking to a CEO of the video shop Blockbuster. They don't exist through Blockbuster anymore. So competition is coming and creates opportunities. And that was already happening, but COVID is just really driving this very hard. So what do we think that your customers are demanding in the printing sector? Well, some of those things that Uber are talking about, they're looking for 24/7. They're looking at you as a service provider in the cloud. They're looking for next day. They're looking for customization, looking for personalization. They're looking for added value. They want to integrate their data to be able to provide better and targeted campaigns. And of course, the money's tight. They're looking for a competitive price. And they're looking for organizations that not only have good technology, but know how to use that technology and how to develop the applications with that technology. So they're looking for success stories from their trusted advisors. What else do customers want? Going back from they don't want to be sold to, they want to buy. And they want to buy from somebody who's trusted, somebody who's knowledgeable, somebody who is consultative, somebody who can be a partner, somebody who is competitive, who can tailor to their specific needs. So disruption is creating a lot of opportunity, but expectations are higher. And if you don't deliver in that sort of expectations, then they want to deal with just price, and they'll not cut you all out, and they'll only engage with you through the internet. So have a really good internet platform. So then we've got to say is, okay, so if that's the disruption, there are going to be winners and losers. Things are going to change for sure. And, but it's definitely going to create some business opportunities. But let's understand, because the purpose of this session is for me to try and explain the behaviors and the skills. So this little Joe Harry window here sort of has, on the one side, we have the solution type, and then we have the buying environment. And the print industry and sector works in all of these boxes. But I want to show initially the solution and buying sort of model, and then I want to show you the skills and behaviors model. So let's first of all look at that. Simple to simple. Now we know these are what we call order takers. The salesperson and the customer representative is serving your customers. But primarily they're taking orders and managing fulfillment. Now, when that gets complex, but once it gets a bit more complex, certainly from a buying point of view, they might go to a procurement house, or they may go to a consortium, or they'll look at, they might even go to some sort of auction house. But what they're looking for is navigators and guide me. And this is really simplex solutions, but with a more complex, and all we're talking about is the complex of purchase. But on a solution, and I think many of the print industry and the many people entering the print industry are using data and managing the processes, and not just manufacturing, they're process engineers for organizations and architects. They're looking for explainers. Show me what my competitors are doing. Show me how to use this technology. Show me how to, to develop my brand. Show me, explain. And then on the other side, we have consultants. And they're slightly different. I'll explain the difference between the explainers and the consultants in a moment. But here they're saying, enlighten me. And so there's often a view in sales that selling is selling. And I just want to encourage you to think of it as a manufacturing process. And depending whether you sell a simple solution or whether you sell a complex solution, you require different skills and behaviors. And you also got to look where the market's going. Because if you get caught, dealing with simple orders, and you have a complex solution or expensive overheads to fulfill that, then I think your days are numbered. However, if you are investing, which many of you are, in technology and processes in 3D and all the different technologies that are coming, and many of you have invested heavily in this area, then I think if you get the right skills and behaviors with people who can explain and consult and can show and enlighten, then I think you're in a very, very good spot. So let's just take that to a skills behavior. So this Joe Harry that we know looks at it at a slightly different way. And this will pinpoint why some organizations will need to change and develop and upskill their people. So we still have the buyer on the left-hand side, and we have the seller on the horizontal at the top. Now, when they can see it and we can see it, guess what? The purchase will be simply on price and criteria. And the technology that I've just described is disrupting this arena. And so if you're in this space, then use the technology and the internet and the way you brand and position yourselves and make it really easy and serve your customers exceptionally. However, when they can see it and it's a very complex purchasing, they will definitely look for partnership, and they will be looking to form a team. And you either lead that team or be part of that team. That's your choice. But they'll be working with third parties, and you've got to be good at working in those environments. However, please note, it's a recognized need. The buyer knows what he wants to buy. He's probably bought it before. He's probably very good at it. He's probably even come from the industry and is now, turned gamekeeper for you. And so you have an expertise. The buyer has a lot of power. However, there's a great opportunity. And in this area, they reckon 30% of sellers will lose their jobs in the price and criteria, and 25%, this is the Forum Corporation, and there, out of 5 million, 25% is 1 million people. So not an insignificant number. So then we look at the unrecognized needs. Now, this is a very different type of approach, because here we've got a recognized need. We don't have to create the need. We don't have to create a budget. We don't need to do anything. They already exist. But when we've got an unrecognized need, we have to see the world through the customer's eyes. They've got challenges and problems. They've got COVID-19 issues. They've got cash issues. They've got leaky buckets. They've got customers going bust on them. And so they've got problems. And so what they're looking for, as we said, is they're looking for thought-provoking talking points. They're looking for solutions. They're looking to be educated. They're looking to say, how do I solve these problems? They haven't got a need for a product yet, but we can engage way down the buying process and engage with them way earlier. So we're actually engaging and we're selling benefits. We're selling them, we're converting these issues into, let me show you how your competitors are coping. Let me show you what the best of the best are doing. Let me show you what they're doing for their customers. And this is often referred to solution selling. We can see it, they can't see it. And the idea is we have a solution looking for a problem. So we segment the market, we target, we use reference stories. And the whole process of storytelling and success, showing successes and references is critical. However, that's great because we know what we want to sell, and we go and find customers who have got these problems, and we service those problems. Of course, once they've done it a few times, they'll start looking at price and criteria. So we've still got to work in the bottom half as well. However, there is another type of selling, which is called consultative selling. And here we have another job to do, whereas some of our top accounts, and when you think about it, the Pareto law, probably 20% of your accounts account for 80% of your business. It's your top accounts. Here, they're looking for the same problem, but they don't know what they want to buy, and you're not quite sure what we're going to sell them yet. So we get together as workshops and discovery workshops and get a hunting license to get into these organizations, so we can really show how we can outsource their businesses, their processes, their print and their communications, and work with their data to drive competitive advantage. So these are 4 different models of selling requiring a totally different set of behaviors. On the one hand, we have got deal responders who don't need to create needs because the needs create. The only problem is we've got a world out there with COVID-19 with a whole load of customers who have just cut back on spending. And then we've got another situation where we've got deal makers. And deal makers have got another bit of problem because they've got a crisis of problems in their customers, and their job is to create the need for their goods and services. And whether that be through consultative or selling them a solution or a service. So there are challenges for deal responders and deal makers at this very moment in time. So let's have a little look at what we need to do. So we're probably asked by, if I talk to CEOs and CEOs, what they said to me, look, can you make my sales force more proactive? Can you, at the moment, we're struggling, to engage with our customers. Can you help us? And what they're really saying is, I want to, to develop my sales force. I want to use my platforms and systems and my internet and to deal with this lower level type selling. I'll work with some partners and the consortium. But when I'm going to involve in salespeople, I really want them to be solution based using a consultative approach. And that's where you're seeing a growth, because in the Forum Corporation, in the top line, that's where there is a growth in demand for skills and jobs, and there's a shortage of capability. So companies are having to take their potential developers and develop a program to skill them up. So let's have a look at what we're talking about here. One of the things that focus on selling service, winning larger contracts, selling value to businesses, being a trusted advisor is key. So of course, it doesn't, you've still got to work out your sectors. You've still got to do your segmentation. You've still got to find your big and easy. You've still got to, to find your small and easy. And you've got to, work out where you're going to play. And asking is all about need creation. The biggest challenge at the moment is that if you don't create a need for your products and services, then they're not going to buy anything. They'll just put it on hold. So if you want to develop the power base, as I'll explain when we get into negotiation, objection handling, you've got to at least be in the bargaining area, and you cannot get anybody into the bargaining area unless they've got a compelling need. So one of the #1 skills is to understand business needs and understand it and look differently at your customers and start seeing the world through their eyes. And secondly, the next thing is that there's two types of needs. There's the business needs, and then there's the personal needs. And there's a lot of personal challenges out there at the moment. And one is asking the right questions, and one is listening to the answers and having emotional and intelligence and rapport. People buy from people. And so understanding their needs and being able to expand those needs and understanding how that impacts on their life and the quality of their life and their personal worries and fears is critical. Now, of course, once we've established their needs, we've got to teach them, show them, and give them the evidence that we can fulfill those needs and educate them. And so in that area of the situation, we're counselors and storytellers. We are looking at the world, and through their world. But of course, we're not a charity. We have to qualify. We're not here to educate your customers so they buy from the cheapest. So we have to qualify that it's worth the effort. We have to plan a success and to make sure the investment of time that you're putting into need creation and into these workshops and into these pilots are worth all the effort. And finally, it's commitments. And anybody, if you look at the very best in this area of solution selling and consultative selling, they work on the principle of commitments. And they simply say nothing gets done without the customer doing some work. And to put a spin on this, the JFK quote back in the inaugural speech is, don't think what the country's going to do for you, but what are you going to do for the country? It's the same concept. I can do a lot of things for you, Mr. Customer, but what are you going to do for me? And this is very much an important part of the negotiation model. So, consultative approach moves you towards being a trusted advisor. the solution seller, the consultant is selling. One is, the simple difference between the two is, one is you know what you want to sell them and package it to sell. The other one is you work with a customer to come up with a solution and tailor it for their specific needs. Either way, they use the same skills. But the important point is it starts further down the buying process. And that's important because you're providing thought leadership. You're solving problems. You are being consulted. You're going to get a better rapport. You're going to understand their needs much better. You're going to understand their personal needs. You're going to understand the politics a lot better. And so, and if you don't develop your people to work in that environment, guess what? Then if you just try to sell, they won't buy in this situation. They've got to have a need. And secondly, if they already know what they want to buy, evidence suggests that what's happened with COVID is they'll do the research online. They will select, the people they want to. They will send their emails to you for quotes, but they won't want to talk to you, and you won't build the loyalty.
Mike, can we drop in with a few questions now? It's Darren.
Sure, perfect.
Yeah. Thoughts around this? Obviously, there's quite a shift in the role of the salesperson. Do you see these as new skills, or is it more refocusing and prioritizing the existing skill sets?
I think the skills have always happened, and I think what's actually happened is that and a lot of companies make a lot of business out of recognized needs. People wanting, print is very much a commodity product. I think what's changed is the disruption of technology and the growth of the internet and the growth of people able to research. And so people with the comparison sites and a whole range of different things, people and auction houses and everything else, you just can't build that rapport and loyalty. And so companies have got two ways. They either really have a lean business and create the McDonald's for the print industry, and there's a lot of printers who are doing a really good job in that area, or they are investing in technology, which a lot of printers are doing. And if they're investing in the manufacturing processes and in technology, then to go with that investment in technology, you must have the investment in their salespeople. It's no longer, is it a case of, oh, well, I'll just recruit somebody who's used to selling print, because that's not the skills that require. Your audience and your customers are demanding trusted advisors and looking for not just account management, they're looking for ideas and leadership.
And with you mentioning account management, obviously the sales role itself is part of a sales process, isn't it? We've got marketing, we've got account management, the salesperson themselves, and clearly the online presence is part of that. Are we looking for a change across all roles here, would you say?
No, it's a very good point. I'm going to come into a couple of things in the next two slides, but your point is very, very valid. That I think that the sales, it's one of those. I've been involved with the print industry and in many ways, and it's absolutely superb at manufacturing and it's superb at process. But it's always been a little disconnect between that rigor and that discipline and that quality not being applied to sales. And sometimes people think sales is an art when in actual fact it's a science. And the rigor of selling has got a start, a middle and an end. It is a process. And when it's not a process, it's a problem. And so you would think that the very best of the printing industry, with its attention to management by fact and data and quality, if the same disciplines are applied to sales process and pipeline development, and from leads to opportunities to closing, and the skills process, then it's amazing. And that's what I'm going to show in the next session, how that aggregation of marginal improvements and that quality control can have an impact.
So whilst things are fairly tough, you're saying, given that if I say in general terms, you're saying that the industry can be quite weak in that area, the opportunity for improvement must be even greater, I guess.
Well, it is because you've got competing priorities. So you've got to build up the needs. So if the needs don't exist, then other priorities. So whereas before, as deal responders, we didn't have to create the need. We just let the customer who's going to buy from somebody, they're going to buy, your job is to make sure they bought from you. Now the problem is your competition isn't necessarily another printer. The competition is the budget. And so if you don't create a need for the budget, then guess what? And there are and these require a different set of skills and behaviours.
John?
Okay.
There was a question from the floor. Darren, again, it may come back, Mike, to it's a science, not an art, but there was a comment made about sales skills can be generic or universal, but within the print sector, there's obviously products within products. So how does the sales team or the sales function need to change to cover the different specialist needs? So again, I suppose if we're looking at sales as a process, is there a process for the complexities, or do you keep it simple? Is it a relationship thing?
Okay, so I think from what I'm hearing is there's always been three types of skills. You have great, professional selling skills. You have great sector knowledge, i.e. you understand your customer's market, whether it be in government or whether that be in whatever it is, retail or hospitality or whatever, your expertise in manufacturing. You end up with people who understand, that sector. And then you have people who understand the technology and the products. So unfortunately, you have to dovetail all three: the sector, the product or service, and the behaviours and skills. And but certainly in going back to the 80-20 rule, the biggest accounts with account management, you've got to be able to create the opportunity, maximize the share of the purse, create the needs, build friends in these accounts, and make sure the opportunities are written for you, not waiting for them for an inquiry on the internet and say, can you give us your best price? Which is what will happen. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with it, and that will still happen, but with your bigger accounts and where your opportunities, and particularly if you have invested in this technology, then I would suggest that to be a trusted advisor, you need all of those three skills. But number one at this moment in time is nobody buys anything unless they've got a compelling need. So you've got to start learning how to create the needs with the organizations. And just to make a point of that, when I ask people, how do you create needs? Nobody gives me a really good answer. But let me just say, there is a crisis of opportunity, maybe not today, but in it coming up. We've just had, needs are created by change. Change is created by something called pestle. Something politically is happening, where we've got a lot of political things going on here. We've got things that are happening, economically. We've got a depression. We've got things happening socially. We've got new technologies. We've got new behaviors. We've got people, 400 growth on the internet. We've got new technology. We've got 3D printing. We've got network printing. We've got services at cloud. We've got a load of things. We've got new laws that are coming in, which is how we manage data. And we've got new environments and factors. So pestle is creating more change and chaos than ever before. And the secret is for the print industry in its area of specialism, or in its area of that, it becomes the trusted advisor and knows the impact of all of that in your world on your customers. And that's what builds up the needs. And there's a lot of worried customers. A lot of your customers are really worried. We might be so worried about our business. I can tell you there's a lot, when I talk to my customers, they're really worried about themselves and their jobs.
Mike, just coming on to planning, and I wanted to link that into two questions as a theme, really. I mean, during this process where it's difficult to engage with customers, it's difficult to gather intelligence. Salespeople are trying to engage, try to gather information. So during this, and you're going to move on to the planning as a number one selling skill. How does a salesperson show value during this planning stage? Because value is about orders, it's about sort of revenue, it's about added value and sales. So this planning process, when everyone's scratching their head looking at cost and revenue. So that I'd like to sort of, if you could link that into it, really, about the value during this planning stage, and then linking it back into the change in the psychology of the buyer and why planning is so important to sort of skip ahead in terms of the next 2 or 3 months and the benefits that come out of that. So, a business owner can understand the value that this investment in planning is going to take place.
Okay, well,
yep.
For those unrecognized needs sales, whether you're trying to win a major contract or whether you're developing your accounts. So we always often say you either win the contract or you win the account. And I've always said it's always a good idea to win the account, because then that makes it that whole lot easier to win the contracts. But sometimes you have to win the contract first before you can go on to win the account. But if I just said something about planning first of all, let's look at sales productivity, if I may. One of the big issues that I'm asking now is that we've got to improve sales productivity, and so these two build up there. So first of all, when I look at a salesperson in those unrecognized needs and consultancies, when I look at the best versus the rest, the best wins 7 or 8 of the contracts that they bid for, and this is the bigger contracts, not the small quote business. This is the more where there's an investment of time, and the average might win 2 out of 5. 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. I don't know about you, but when there's some work done by one of the Forex Corporation, that costs corporations across the world 50 billion a year. In other words, we've got millions and millions of salespeople who spend most of their life losing. And so what we really want them to think about is actually, this is one of the disciplines, is to say, look, the biggest waste of time is losing deals. So the first thing we want to do is we either want to win, or we come first past the winning post, or first out of the race. What we don't want to do is get stuck in second and third. And second is just the first of the losers. And so there's not really that much point, and there's a lot of wasted time and energy. And now, what we need to do then is, what do we do to replicate the best? This is getting down to the planning process. So we need a tool, a planning tool, that helps us decide which ones we're going to bid and which ones we're not going to bid. And if we're going to bid for them, how we're going to win them. And the other situation is start to accept, and this is really difficult when you're really starving, is to refuse to bid on unwinnable deal, because all that does is waste time. And the deals that you could have won, you come second, when if you really did a really good job and planned to win it and built the relationships and got all the commitments that you need, you'd win it. And the third one is that they because they've saved time, they use that time to do the research, they do the segmentation, they do the thought leadership, they talk to people and make sure they're on the mental shopping list, so they will be considered. And so they are. And the idea of investing time into develop opportunities is that you've got a luxury of choice to throw out the bad ones and focus on the good ones. And finally, what to do is, what does that mean? Is that you end up doubling your selling time. It's obvious. If you win 7 out of 10 versus 2 out of 10, you've got double the selling time. Secondly, you develop, because you're planning more effectively, you've got win strategies to win the winnable. And then thirdly is that you improve sales productivity dramatically. And more importantly is, with managing the processes and selling the timetables and treating it as a manufacturing process, we can start to put more accurate forecasting together.
Just a point there, Mike. I mean, I know we've got a number of business owners and managing directors with their sales teams on the call. So are you then suggesting that at this stage, it's best to sit down and go through this process as a team and get some groupthink in terms of what we focus on and what we do, what we can win, and focus on that, as opposed to trying to win everything, win the winnables as such, as a process?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were doing those skill sets, of course, we've got to learn how to create the needs with our customers. We've got to then show how, we've got to be really good at showing how we can fulfill those needs and give the evidence to support those needs. But we've also got to qualify. This is a time management. We have a limited resource, and we've got to make sure that, you have to accept there are deals that you can win and there's deals that you're never going to win. The reason why you've got a chance of winning them is because you've got a relationship, politics, or you've got some good USPs in that area. The reason why you're not going to win them is probably because your competitor's got a relationship or a politics or got some USP. So we have to use the criteria to help us identify which are the ones we can win and which ones we can't win. And then accept that we're going to focus on that, and not try to waste time on deals we're never going to win, because really what we should be doing is investing our time growing our awareness improving our coverage, improving our consideration within the eligible market that we should be applying, and developing our accounts and walking the corridors to uncover needs with them. So if we move on to the other side, because if someone says to me, what is the difference between the best and the rest, I always come back to this, and it's something I said a little bit earlier on, which I just want to reinforce. First of all, to be good at understanding the customer's needs, you've really got to do the research on what's impacting your customers, and particularly their customers' customers. And we also, in those areas, we want to go a little higher up in the organization. So we're talking at a slightly higher level than just procurement. We need strong qualification. And this is really good because this wastes a lot of time. I always think if you're going to, as we go through a contract, we qualify out the ones we're not going to win. And so when we get to the end of the deal, and after the bid, and when they start beating us up for better pricing or better T's and C's, because of strong qualification, we know we've won the deal. We just now need to negotiate and bargain. And that's a set of behaviors and skills. But if we do things in the right way, we've created the need, we've done the qualification, got rid of things, we're building a power base that puts more power back into the seller than the buyer. And one of the key elements of that training and focus, we do a lot on this, is that I strongly encourage you to avoid ambiguity and subjectivity. You need to bring sales into black and white. We either did or we didn't get a commitment from the customer. It's either yes or no. You know, it's not like we want promises. We want them to say we've got a great solution. We want customers to do things for us to convince us that they're serious. Most organizations measure what the salesperson's doing, the quantity of the work, how many presentations, how many proposals, how many quotes. It's not measuring the quality. The most important thing, the true quality, is the work the customer does, the information they provide you, the access they give to your organization, the time that they spend with you, how you influence their criteria, and how your friends lobby for you to help you win the business. Those are the most important things that we should be measuring. And so you have a process of measuring your customer. What your customers are doing to progress a sale, winning a major contract or winning an account, is the accumulation of customer commitments. And so if you look at the best, whereas a lot of salespeople only think about one meeting to the next and reactive, some spend all the time doing loads of quotes and loads of proposals and loads of pilots and lots of this. And then you sort of say, well, was that a really good work? Because what was the customer doing? Nothing. Well, okay, that doesn't seem right. And then you find out they don't actually get any business. And yet the ones who are actually thinking about, look, I need you to do this, and I need access to this, and I need you to spell out this, I need to spend some time with you, I need you to show me situation, I need you to provide me things. And when the customer does all those things, it sort of shows that they're really serious. And sometimes, because of this time at this moment in time, the consultative salespeople get into the corridors. They're busy, asking questions like, why is that important to you? Do you find that? What's the impact of that? What's the expectations there? What's happening in your world? And what challenges? Because so they're finding out how they might be able to help them. And so the true quality of the sale then, and the true quality of your opportunities in the application, replication, consultative space is very much the work that the customer's doing, just as well as the work that you're doing. And so in that other area, in the price and criteria, gosh, you can't influence their decision because they've already done their research. They've already looked on the internet. They've already read the case studies. They've already decided what they're going. And by the way, they bought it before anyway, so they know what it is. And so it's very difficult to influence. They're just going to buy on price.
Mike, just to add a thought here, and so many businesses, business owners, and teams are so desperate, and this issue of holding your nerve and not throwing lots of opportunities and quoting on those opportunities. The need to follow a process and some discipline and the outcome, as opposed to quoting on everything because you're so desperate. I mean, that's the dilemma in this marketplace now, isn't it? It is. And so
for everything,
yeah.
To build your power base within your accounts and to build your power base for negotiation, there are a number of stages which we'll present in the third session of these situations. It's all about building a power base within your account, building friends, building commitments, building the needs. And remember, if you're a trusted advisor, if you're solving problems, if you're providing thought leadership, do you know what? It's a little bit harder to beat you over the head because your friends will stick up for you. It's when you haven't done all that work and it's just a decision based around price, well, of course they're going to beat you up. Because you aren't adding any value. Why would you pay premium? If I can save 50 quid, I'll save 50 quid. Why wouldn't I? Particularly given all the stresses and strains that everybody's going through. So, but I don't, you know, and part of qualification is this a price decision or is it a decision that I can add value to? Does this person, you know, if I can, you know, it's the knee-jerk reaction is somebody asks for something and your situation is you immediately respond to what they've asked for. A better response would be, why is that important to you? Why now? And then get them talking and then introduce ideas and saying, oh, I never thought about it that way. And then we might be able to provide some added value. But the point is, all I'm trying to make here is that on the one side, we need to qualify where we're going to play through a whole range of situations and the accounts that we've got to do. And at the second time is you've got to take steps in the process, which means that there's work we do, the work the customer does, and commitments that actually drive the sale forward, which is really the problem at the moment because everything's at a standstill. And so the starting point is we've got to create the needs again.
An anecdote on that, just to add, Mike, one of the big online businesses, and we were chatting to a couple of them yesterday who were saying that their order intake had jumped 50–60% in the last month. But there was at the very beginning of shutdown, one of the big online offerings, their level of orders had dropped down to 15% of their normal turnover. And what they started to do was ring every person who asked for a requested a price on their system, and they managed to get it back up to 35%. But going through that process of discussion, where was the value, and having a more integrative dialogue with their customer. So that's what you're saying as well, isn't it? As part of the process, review every customer, review every opportunity.
It's not about responding to the needs. It's about understanding. It's a conversation about the issues, what they're trying to do for their customers, what are they trying to do. Of course, there's a lot of business will all come from price and criteria and responding to customers and providing a great service. People are going to buy from somebody, and in that space, your job is to provide a great service, so they want to buy from you. But there's an opportunity through disruption and through what we're just describing, that you can develop your sales professionals and skills and behaviors that actually are able to sell solutions or able to consult effectively with your customers. And that's a different set of skills to the deal responders. Both and all those models provide opportunities. They're just different sets of skills and behaviors. So I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying that they're different. There's some are better at doing some things, and they want to move into other areas, and now's forcing that upon them because that's what the market's demanding. So we said, I'll just very quickly go through this because we'll come back to this a little bit later on, but in another session. But we've got to remember, we're about skills and behaviors in terms of sales professional replicating the best. And the first thing we've got to do is you've got to encourage your people to understand what and why they've got to invest in their development. You've then got to provide an infrastructure and coaching and support to provide them with the skills and competencies and the leadership to do that. And then more importantly, using that infrastructure, sustain it. So what we've seen is one of the big changes that is happening in today is that companies used to invest in the classroom. They spend all the money, 60% of their budget on equipping them with the skills and competencies, and only got 10% of the results. So the strategy should be, let's involve the people, which I think what Marcus said earlier, let's do it as a team. Let's equip them with the right skills and behaviors for the models for that company. And then let's put a closed loop process in that continually helps coach them. And there is a big difference now. The big message nowadays is coaching. And it's not about managing, because managing always looks in the past. They always look about previous results. Whereas now with coaching and with fulfilling the potential of our people and looking forward. So there's a balancing act for the leaders out there to be excellent at managing sales process management and managing performance, whilst at the same time managing the behaviors and coaching skills to get the best out of their people. And I think the BPIF, and I've worked with them, with the tools and infrastructure available, can make this happen. So that's just one thing. And so the fortune favors pipeline. So next week we're going to talk about the aggregation of marginal improvements. We're going to talk about the formula that if we apply the right performance management with the right skills and behaviors, little things, little improvements have a dramatic impact. And at this moment in time, you need to understand what are the key levers. If we get these key levers sorted, this is the one that to focus in on while we get, while you build your pipelines and build your relationships and build your build the opportunities, which is going to be very tough because there's a lack of budget out there. But they all glue together. So if we get it right, and you can visualize it, then it really shows you how you can grow and be prepared for the change and the opportunities. And it really is down to you guys. Any more questions?
No, thanks, Mike. I'm very mindful of time. It's 13:58, and so just to say, your next session, Mike, you've got next week is the 2nd of July. Blending in next week, which covers actually some of the areas you're talking about disruption, Mike. We've got Sean Smith, who's been involved in the Smithers Pyra global research, and Sean's going to talk anecdotally and evidentially about some of the remodel imagination that's going on in people's business models and how companies are coping with this disruption and changing, changing their business model. So it'll be a really interesting input to gain some ideas around it. And then we come back into you on the 2nd of July and the 16th of July. We've got a white paper after each session, which Dawn mentioned, that'll be emailed to everybody who's joined the session today. So we'll also distribute a copy of the video presentations today as well. I saw John, I think John Tolley was on, I saw a question or a statement John made earlier on, and you're part of this change in behaviour and remodelling is very much around collaborations, and John Tolley's been a sort of beacon of collaborations, was talking the week before last on that, which again is recorded on our series of webinars. If you haven't gone back over those, do take a look at the website. There's some very good thoughts and very good debate around key issues. But Mike, thanks again. Thanks, Sarah, for joining us. And Dawn, anything to add to finish? I think you've got some questions that have come up as well, Dawn, as well, haven't you?
Lots of statements, Marcus. A couple of comments about how many of the participants today had actually got a defined sales process. It's something we can take offline and maybe incorporate in the next session. But no, most of the questions have been covered, I think.
Okay.
Okay, well, hopefully food for thought, and thank you very much for having us.
And thanks to everybody. Yeah, thanks again.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
next time.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Thank you.